Let's start here, right now. Lil Yachty, once the face of SoundCloud rap, mumble rap, bubblegum rap, which to be quite honest, I don't even know what that is, but that's what people say, so I'm rolling with it. To now, just overnight, after one album being praised as a brave and bold artist amongst the likes of Tyler the Creator, Mac Miller, Childish Gambino. Artists who branched out into other genres and reinvented themselves not just as rappers, but as true artists. This seemed to be the reception sweeping across the internet, but I had to listen to find out for myself. This is my review of Lil Yachty's new album, Let's Start Here. When it comes to giving an album a rating, over here on this channel, we don't use a number scale because music isn't math. It's an art form. It's based on emotion and how it makes you feel. So we're not using numbers over here. We're not making some formula. I'm not taking different categories and putting a number on it, then adding up the score, saying, here's my score, like I'm doing calculus.
If the limit never approaches anything, the limit does not exist. The limit does not exist.
And that's how you should listen to it as well, because music is art. It's not math. So the scale we'll be using at the top, we got Masterpiece. This is an amazing album. I'm going to listen to it front to back over and over and over again. And I just absolutely love this album and need more of it.
Wow.
Fire. It's a great album. I'm going to send it to my friends with a fire emoji being like, yo, you got to check this out. It's a good album. A lot of songs I might add to a playlist, but it's something I really enjoyed. Solid. It's good. I liked a few songs. Maybe one or two really stand out to me. Not great, but not bad. Then we got, as the kids would say, mid. Mid! It's not good. It's not even average. It's just not terrible. It's just a nothing burger. I listen to it. I get nothing out of it. It just sounds like noise. And then the lowest on the scale, we got Stinky Poopy.
Stinky!
The album was not good. I did not enjoy it at all. The artist did not execute things properly. And I will not be listening to this again. My first impression right off the bat, as soon as I looked at this album, it wasn't called Let's Start Here. It's Let's Start Here, period. And I was like, what does the period mean? Does the period mean something? And I looked at the track list. There were all these different punctuation marks and weird spelling, and there were periods and exclamation points and even teal days. Maestro, puedo ir al baño. Why is he adding the teal day? What could it even mean? Is there a reason why Lil Yachty chose to add teal days? After listening to it, I decided he probably just did it because he thought it looked cool and it kind of went with the names of the songs. So I don't know if there really is a reason. This album has 14 songs and just over 57 minutes of runtime. Now that is a long album, so that's kind of a risk. When you make an album that's pushing an hour, it's got to do a really good job of holding the listener's attention, because it's really easy with a long album to lose someone, and especially not have the people want to listen to it front to back. People are going to start picking and choosing the longer the album is. Lil Yachty was even tweeting, he was adamant that he wanted people to listen to this front to back. Most people are going to do that, but the longer you make the album, the more difficult it will be for the listener to hold their attention. I also noticed there were no features listed on this album, but my assumption was, and I was correct, that this was the kind of hidden features trend that people are doing now, where artists, when they first drop the album, they don't put the features on the track list because they don't want people to go and jump to their favorite artists that are featured on the song. They want you to listen to it in its totality and just judge it off the music, not the features. It's also worth noting that Lil Yachty has production credits on 12 of the 14 tracks, which is also impressive. That means he was very hands-on on not just the lyrics, but also the production of the album, and it's more of an expression of him and not just him rapping on beats, although we knew going into this that this was not going to be a rap album and that this was more of an alternative and psychedelic album. It's also necessary to point out that Lil Yachty has production credits on 12 of the 14 tracks on this album, and one of the two that he does not have production credits for is the song Failure, which is a spoken word song. So really there's only one true song that Lil Yachty does not have production credits for, which means he was very hands-on, not just with the lyrical content, but the production as well. And lastly, before we go any further, we got the album cover. I don't really know what's going on here. It looks like people in a business meeting of some kind, all laughing. Their faces look kind of warped and weird. To me, it reminds me of Bastard era Tyler the Creator album cover. If you remember the Bastard cover, he took a kindergarten picture and messed with the kids' faces. It looks like that's what Lil Yachty did here, but he used like an AI generator to make it or something. So interesting album cover choice, which honestly, after listening to it, I'm not really sure what the album cover is supposed to mean in relation to the music. So that's something I'd be interested in hearing more about. So we as fans knew going into this album that this would not be a traditional rap album from Lil Yachty. He stated that it was going to be an alternative album. We were going to get some psychedelic rock, and this album is tailor-made for a psychedelic trip. Some of the songs even refer to having a bad trip, and you could tell from the production choices and some of the lyrics that that's what this was made for.
I'm totally tripping balls. I'm totally tripping balls.
This album to me gives me the impression that Lil Yachty was only listening to like Pink Floyd, Tame Impala, and Mild High Club when he was making this album. I also want to highlight both the intro and the outro as they were very long songs. The intro, The Black Seminole, was almost 7 minutes long, and then the outro, Reach the Sunshine, is almost 6 minutes long. So you got almost 13 minutes of runtime between just the intro and the outro, and I think Lil Yachty executed both of these songs masterfully, and that it was able to hold my attention throughout, which is, again, a long album that's hard to do, a long song that's hard to do. He did a good job of giving them a lot of highs, a lot of lows, a lot of twists and turns that you were able to stay on the journey with him. So I think he should be applauded for executing that very well. Now, speaking on the production, to me, and what seems like to most people, this is the strongest part of the album. And not only was the production the strongest, but what Lil Yachty did very well is that he let the production breathe. He didn't try to speak too much over it, say too much, rap too much, sing too much, whatever it is. He let the music do most of the talking and had the lyrics and himself take a back seat, which with this type of an album, I feel like is absolutely necessary. So I think from that standpoint, that was an excellent decision that was made and job well done by him and the producers that worked on this album. What I was also super impressed with were the transitions from one song to the next. If I was not actually looking at my phone when I was listening to it to see when the tracks would change, I literally would have no clue when it was a new song. Everything was perfectly from one song to the next that you couldn't even hear when the songs changed, which shows how much intent was made in the sequencing of the album, how the journey it would take you front to back. And that probably goes to why Lil Yachty said on Twitter, listen to it front to back, because it was intended to be listened to in that order, because you could hear it literally transition seamlessly from one song to the next. With regards to the production, the biggest standout to me is the intro track, The Black Seminole. Again, he doesn't say too much. He lets the track breathe. There's a lot of highs. There's a lot of lows. There's a guitar riff throughout the middle instrumental part, which is just awesome. I wish rock was more prevalent in music today, because nothing hits right like some dude just absolutely tearing it up on the guitar on some guitar solo. You don't get that much anymore in popular music and rap music. You don't at all. The instrumentation on the second half of this song was amazing. It was going up and then it slows down and it kind of lulls you to sleep, and then bam, it just comes back and punches you right in the face. I thought that was such a good job. Well done. And Diana Gordon absolutely bodied this song. She was probably the biggest standout, and I'll get into that in the features portion. She was probably the biggest highlight for me throughout this whole album. Now, with regards to the lyrics, I think this was probably the weakest part of the album. I think the lyrics were just a little too simplistic. You know, I got the message and what the meaning behind a lot of these songs were and where he was trying to go, but I don't think Yachty really dove deeper past like the surface level emotions one would be experiencing when it comes to, you know, these topics like breaking up and stuff like that. A lot of focus on his love interest and using the sun and sunshine as a metaphor for the good times he shared with that person. Like, I'm running out of time. They say we're going to stay up and watch the sun. Track 7 is We Saw the Sun. It's a breakup song, kind of reminiscing about the good times and the love that him and this person experienced together, and viewing that as them seeing the sun. On The Zone, he's repeating the sunshine, the sunshine, the sunshine. So a lot of talk about the sunshine and that representing the good times he shared with his love interest. You can hear on a lot of songs throughout the album, like on Pretty, where he's doing the wobble like he did on Poland, like I took the walk. While we're on the song Pretty, I think this was a perfect example of where the lyrics were a little too simplistic and just didn't get the message across. Lil Yachty's first verse, I'm going to read it. He goes, walk up on the right side, I feel so pretty. Kiss my girl on her thighs, grab on her titties. I know that they despise, I feel so sexy. Warm you up when it's cold, you call me bestie. Don't test me, I'm too sexy. The word titties just shouldn't be on any song on this album.
Cool, a boob.
This album sounded too serious and mature for Lil Yachty for him all of a sudden to just throw grab on her titties somewhere in the middle of that album. A positive, I thought he did an excellent job of harmonizing with Justine Skye on the chorus for Running Out of Time, which is one of my favorite songs on the album. I enjoyed the spoken word song Failure, to be honest. I mean, it's a nice, little piece to put right in the middle. I like the message he was saying, you can't really fail, just use it as a way to retool and rethink and keep trying. So, a little bit of a cliche message, which I think kind of then goes along to the messaging and the lyrical content being a little too simplistic, but it's still a good message nonetheless. When it comes to criticisms that I've seen online on this album, I've seen most of it being along the lines of his performance from a singing perspective and being out of key and too harsh on some of the songs, and kind of the difference between him and, some of the artists featured on the album who have much better singing voices. But I actually, in a way, kind of liked the times where he was off key, because I feel like it was at moments that were meant to be, very climactic and emotional. A lot of times when we're in those moments as humans, we're not singing perfectly or acting perfectly. When you're emotional, you kind of are a little out of control. So in a way, I almost feel like the being too harsh and out of key and kind of not really singing well in a way kind of gets the emotion across more effectively than if he were, somehow singing perfectly and more in key than he was. And really, while his singing probably does stand to improve, you have to give him a lot of credit for being someone who is not a singer, and you can kind of tell from this album he can't really sing anywhere near as well as, the features, and he's heavily auto-tuned and a lot of effects on his voice. But it's a very ballsy move to go, I'm not the best singer, but I'm still going to execute this alternative psychedelic rock album that requires me to really sing on the album. So, kudos to him for making that attempt and, in my opinion, executing it, not the best, but not poorly. I think he did a good job. Now, along with the production, this was also one of the super strong parts of the album, and that's the features. Now, while there weren't a ton of features, you could tell they were strategically placed and put at the moments that really enhanced a lot of the tracks. The biggest standout for me, as I mentioned earlier, was Diana Gordon. I've never heard of Diana Gordon, never listened to any of her songs. The first thing I did after finishing this album was go look up her music and save it to listen to later, because she was phenomenal on this album. Two of my favorite songs on this album were The Black Seminole and Drive Me Crazy. Both feature Diana Gordon, and both songs, she was the highlight for me. She just absolutely bodied the intro track. On Drive Me Crazy, it was like a 70s funk, like groovy song, and just the way she was singing was perfect. And actually, I thought vocally from a singing perspective, that was Lil Yachty's best performance for sure. My other favorite song on this was Running Out of Time, which featured Justine Skye on the chorus, and I thought she was amazing. And again, I thought Lil Yachty and her, the way they harmonized each other was really good. And then Daniel Caesar on the closing track, Reach the Sunshine, just reminded me of Frank Ocean, Channel Orange vibes. And lastly, Tizo Touchdown was featured on The Ride. I was introduced to him on Tyler, the Creator's album, Call Me If You Get Lost. I've tried his solo music and it hasn't really connected with me too much, but I think he was a great example of someone who was very strategically placed, because I thought he fit brilliantly on that song, The Ride. I think that was like the perfect song for him to be on. So I thought he had a good performance as well. My final thoughts, I was very interested to hear this album because I'm a big fan of Lil Yachty, to be honest. Even his old music that was considered the mumble rap stuff, I actually enjoyed it and thought he got way too much hate. Everyone was praising this album and this new psychedelic rock alternative sound. I thought he executed it very well. I also think it's worth keeping in mind that this was his first attempt. I think a lot of artists, when they try to make this shift in their sound, like Tyler, the Creator, but when he did Cherry Bomb was considered a flop. People think he didn't execute that well, but it was his first attempt at really making a shift in his sound. And then after that came Flower Boy and all the masterpieces that followed. So I think when it comes to you considering the fact that this was Lil Yachty's first attempt at a more mature sound, a genre that deviates from the traditional hip hop sound and the mumble rap, SoundCloud, whatever kind of rap you want to say he made before, I think he did an excellent job at that first attempt. And we're only 1 month into the year, but I think this is the best album that's dropped so far in 2023. So we'll see how long that holds up, but we're at the end of January and I haven't heard anything better at this point. In terms of a rating, I'm going to say this is solid. I think it's very good. I enjoyed it. I will come back to it. And I actually suspect that Lil Yachty's next attempt at this type of alternative sound, I think he'll execute it even better, because I think, like he said in the song Failure, if it's not failure, you kind of look at things, you retool, you rethink, you try to execute it again and try something different. I think he'll do a good job of taking what he did successfully when it comes to the production, maybe what he was lacking a little bit in the lyrical content, and it'll kind of improve and he'll probably come back with something even better. So I actually have high hopes for what he has to come next, but this is a great album that I did enjoy. And I hope you enjoyed this as well. So make sure you hit like and subscribe on your way out. I am Don Chenz. Thank you for watching.